Hi, this is Chris Heineken, bringing you a new installment of our Insight Track interview series, in which we invite industry and technology thought leaders to discuss analytics, machine learning, current market trends, and how companies are evolving to be more data-driven. And joining me today is Anthony Rizzo, the SVP of Customer Success at Salesforce. And Anthony and our team, we've worked together some in the market recently, and specifically in the financial services industry. And I'm excited to bring you some of Anthony's thoughts to the interview series. So welcome, Anthony.
Thanks, Chris. Pleasure to be here. Really appreciate you inviting me and looking forward to our discussion.
And maybe first point of discussion would be a little bit of your background. So you've got a long tenured career with Salesforce, all in kind of a customer success space. Tell us about your journey at Salesforce.
No, thanks, Chris. So I've been at Salesforce for nearly 9 years now. And I currently run the success vertical for financial services in AMER. And I've been in success for a number of years now. I actually took this responsibility in 2015. I actually came in services. So I joined in the services organization, moved over to success a few years later, and then took on the financial services vertical in early 2015. Prior to joining Salesforce, I was actually in industry in financial services. And I was a consultant for a long time before that, also in financial services. So what's really interesting is, I get the opportunity to apply the industry lens, the client lens, the consultant lens, and really help to shape success for my customers, having been, sort of in all of those roles, in the customer role and around the customer role for a number of years. It's really exciting for me.
And as you've gone on through the course of the years, any kind of big lines of demarcations or chapters in the success program at Salesforce that you would call out? I know, like, more recently, it's been a lot around outcomes and trying to figure that out. How has the success program at Salesforce evolved?
I think that's spot on. And I know you and I have had this discussion, quite a few times. I think we really need to focus on outcomes. So what is a customer trying to achieve when they partner with Atrium and Salesforce and bring us in to really help them drive their program? What are their business objectives? And then how do we align execution to those objectives, right? So historically, and we've been doing this for a long time, many programs were focused on delivery dates, scope, rollout plans, and less focus, I should say, on what are the business outcomes that we're trying to achieve. Once you get into the execution, it's really easy to just focus on what I'm doing in the moment to get to, that rollout date. And what we've been trying to do, and I know you and I have had this conversation, is really think about, through the execution, what are those outcomes? How do we set the foundation to baseline, to measure? And then once we get to delivery, ensure that we're achieving those outcomes. And if not, how do we course correct, right? How do we manage or help the client manage the business to get to the point where they're getting, the value that they had intended and realizing the vision that they signed up to do when they partnered with us?
Yeah, it's such an interesting challenge. Like, everybody says we want to get to outcomes, and then the gearing, almost the muscle memory of these programs is to go straight to adoption metrics, or, am I on budget, on time? And so it just feels like it takes a really concerted effort to not only set up the data, the baselining going on, and continue to revisit that throughout all of these programs. It's a lot of work.
You've mentioned a really important point, which is sort of continuing with that muscle to make sure that it's not a point in time measurement, right? It's not a point in time analysis. It's something that, especially with partnerships like ours and engagements and platforms like Salesforce, that it's something you continue to look at and measure and course correct and make sure that you're driving greater and greater value through the life cycle.
And I think on the topic of success, you have a really interesting vantage point. You see a ton of pattern from the install base. One of the questions that I always love fielding from companies that are doing evaluations, thinking about kicking off programs, or like, we'll often get asked, what are the top 2-3 things we need to think about to be successful that we can control? You have an amazing vantage point on that. I mean, if maybe said a different way, if you were to think about the programs and the environments out there that exist, what is there a common denominator or a couple common denominators that kind of explain the difference between those programs that are just kind of average versus those that are top 10%, top 1% in being successful?
Yeah. So I'd say, in addition to setting the foundation to drive the objectives and align to objectives, engagement matters, right? And so what's proven incredibly impactful is to ensure that we have the right alignment and the right cadence with customer executives and partners. So if we think about my success team, your teams on the ground, our clients, ensuring that everybody's aligned, there's transparency, and with that type of engagement, we can drive greater success. And you and I, we've been in this business a long time. We know that there are execution challenges in every program, right? Yep. The opportunity is to ensure that when those challenges present themselves, we have the right alignment to solve those challenges as quickly as possible and maintain momentum. And what we've seen critically is when we do this and do it well, it makes a sea change of difference in the outcomes. And we've seen that be one of the primary patterns that we've driven to over the past number of months at this point. It's really critical. We've seen it impact outcomes really dramatically.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to get that question. And in some respects, you can put yourself in a good environment, choose the right platform, right? You choose the right partner. In a lot of ways, like my experience or our experience has been, sometimes it just boils down to kind of mentality and almost like a sense of accountability. And so in environments where we work with companies that want to own the destiny, that tends to be a real good predictor of, all right, they're going to be successful versus we're going to kind of outsource the success of this, right? So it's definitely aligns with kind of how you see the world. We definitely see it the same way. Curious, as you've observed let's say the last 6 months and programs that have been launching, any difference in how companies are starting to think about investment from your perspective since the pandemic?
Yes. So there's sort of this new engagement pattern, obviously, right? People being remote, and so what we've seen, and I think this is not news, is that financial services firms are really focused on how they drive engagement with their customers or their clients, and how they do it in a manner in which they're remote or they're digital. So I'll sort of differentiate between the two. In our financial services vertical, right, there are a lot of our customers that have or that require direct interaction with their customers, and that comes through remote engagement. And so how do you provide for different roles who are customer or client focused to engage with their customers, knowing that they might not be able to engage in an office for quite some time to come?
Yep.
And customers need that engagement. And two is the digital engagement, right? So what is the means by which I'm providing service to my clients or customers without that interaction, without having to walk into a branch, as an example? And so I think what's happening is that in this environment with the pandemic, it's just accelerating the transformation, the digital transformation that we all talk about, because it's absolutely critical to how firms engage with their customers or their clients at this point. And I believe that many believe this will be sort of the new normal, or some semblance of this will be normal going forward.
So it sounds like kind of what you're seeing are breaking of norms, and that is translating into different technology investment and things that maybe weren't possible before now are. Is that kind of a way to think about it?
Yeah, I think that's right. Or become more critical to the business process.
Yeah.
And I think it's sort of this marrying of the advancement of the technology, which I think is what you're suggesting, and the needs of our customers to get to that place where they can better leverage the technology to engage with their customers. It's pretty amazing. You think about the advancements that have happened even in the last few years for a platform like ours, to really drive the level of engagement that's needed today.
Yeah, very good. And I'm curious, any kind of sub segments of the financial services space? So as you think of all the segments that you work with, um, any that are jumping out to you that are really moving faster towards digital transformation or maybe moving slower based on this?
I think they're all sort of on the trajectory somewhere, whether it's PNC insurance or retail banking, wealth or institutional banking. I think all of them are trying to do something. We see a lot in the banking space in particular, like retail, and I'll call it banking and wealth, right? So how do you provide service to a customer, like myself or yourself, who is in the market, in the deposit space? How do I ensure that we're providing the right level of service to you or me,
Right.
to make sure that folks are getting what they need out of the institution. And I think the market is driving that too, because of the volatility, the concern people have, and banks want to basically meet that customer demand.
So you're seeing it across all segments, maybe a little bit standing out in your head as far as retail banking, wealth management. Okay, that's great to hear. How about, like, typically we're here in November. This would be a time that we're hanging out together, potentially in San Francisco at Dreamforce. We're obviously going to be doing that virtually this year, but this is typically a time of the year where big announcements are made, product vision is set. Salesforce has been doing a ton of investment in new platforms, new technologies. Anything that you'd call out to maybe the financial services community in general that you're really excited about as far as what's on the roadmap for the next couple of years?
I think it's an interesting time, right? And we would be in San Francisco right now, if or next week, I guess, if it weren't for the pandemic. But I think sort of the structure of what we're doing with Dreamforce to You is sort of, I think, meaningful in terms of meeting customers where they are, and providing sort of that platform and that forum to engage customers, and drive a level of engagement in a time where we're all remote, which is really interesting. And I think it's sort of, you can extrapolate that to think about, like, okay, how do we do this, and then how do our customers similarly provide a platform and a level of engagement with their customers in a time that where this might become sort of the newer normal, the new normal. In terms of the roadmap, I think there's a lot of just interesting stuff. I won't call out anything in particular,
Yeah.
but I do think if you look at sort of the breadth of what we're bringing to bear in the time that we're in, I think the opportunity is really amazing. And I really look forward to the needs of digital transformation within our customers, specifically within financial services, and the breadth of the capability that we have today. I mentioned before, I joined Salesforce nearly 9 years ago. I know you've been in the ecosystem a long time. It's really amazing to see the breadth of the platform, having grown so significantly, even over the past few years, let alone from where we were 9 years ago. And I think where customers are and what it is firms are trying to do these days, the breadth of the platform really meets them, or meets the need pretty critically, at this point in time.
Well, good. It will be fun to kind of monitor the progress. Really appreciate your points of view, Anthony. It's tremendous to kind of get your take on success patterns out there, what's going on with the market and the different segments and financial services. So appreciate your point of view. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Chris. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.